NWO.
They're practically middle-aged.
For life.
Jeff calls us outlaws.
New World Order.
For life.
New World Order.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to episode 15 of the Middle-Aged Outlaws podcast. I'm Ross, I'm your host, and I'm here with my co-host Adam. Adam, how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay, thanks. How are you?
That's absolute bullshit. You've just told me that you're absolutely gutted about Scotland getting beat last night.
Yeah, I shouldn't have brought it up. Should have left it in the past last night. Should be just moving on and enjoying a little bit of WCW. But it was a bit tough.
Difficult to take, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But who's your tip for the Euros now that Scotland are out, obviously?
I don't really know. I think Italy are generally the best team I've seen in terms of playing consistently well.
Yeah,
I feel like some teams have had one good game. I feel like they've had kind of 2.5 with reserves in one of the games, so probably Italy.
What about my Dutch boys?
They're exciting to watch. I'm not sure. I never feel like they're in control of a game, which is great for watching it, but they might come unstuck.
It's going to be interesting to see. There's been some good performances. France got that amazing squad, but they look a bit inconsistent, certainly against Hungary. Yeah. And that Portugal-Germany game was someone else to watch. So
yeah, interesting tournament.
Yeah. So on to better things. Now that Croatia have ruined our lives for the foreseeable. Better things. WCW in February '98. That is our topic today. We're talking Superbrawl 8 and WCW. So I assume that you've been in 1998 this whole time. You've not nipped out at all.
No, been stuck in 1998.
Oh yeah, me too, definitely, me too. I definitely didn't nip out and watch NXT or anything like that. Promise.
Yeah, so I believe you. I'll choose to believe you. I won't look at anything that's gone on the channels or anything like that.
Well, you don't have access to it in 1998. So WCW. I'm going to be straight up off the bat and tell you that I absolutely loved all of this. No, that's not true at all. That's far too enthusiastic. I loved most of this. Most of the Thunder, most of the pay-per-view, most of the following night's Nitro. This was a lot of fun. How about you?
Yeah, enjoyed it. I don't know if it just was the show we watched the last time or what, but this just felt a lot better. There was a lot more things that interested me going on. I think you said you were the same. I think it was my first ever episode of Thunder that I've watched.
Yep.
I've seen a few Nitros over the years, but this was my first Thunder. Enjoyed that. Thought it was a good pay-per-view. Like you indicated, nothing's perfect. There's some duds on there, but generally pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, like you mentioned Thunder there, shall we go for it and talk about the Thunder that sets us up for the pay-per-view?
Absolutely.
So this was it, as with everything at this time, and I'm sure it must have been for all of 97, majority of 96 from when it started. Everything's about the NWO here.
Yeah.
Whether you think rightly or wrongly, if there's very few people on this roster of WCW, which is absolutely stacked, there's very few of them. If they're not involved in an NWO angle, then they're not really, I wouldn't say they're not involved, but they're probably not that important.
Yeah.
Do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you said stacked roster. It does feel, because obviously we're going WWE shows to WCW shows, and WWE's starting to bubble pretty nicely. But I think this has more star power. There's so many names that are sort of iconic of the era, or maybe in some cases the era just before this.
Yes.
But they're household names. You know, even if I think we've mentioned before, people who don't know wrestling know who Hulk Hogan is, but some of the other names you've got on here, like Savage, Sting, Luger, you know, there's just really big names throughout this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's literally an embarrassment of riches, especially if you were watching Nitro or Thunder. You flick over the channel and you get like DOA versus The Nation or something like that, and they're just totally leagues apart as far as name recognition's concerned.
Yeah.
This Thunder starts off in fairly controversial circumstances. We have Macho Man Randy Savage, who's already sort of on the bad side of the NWO as far as Hogan and Nash are concerned. You see him. You kind of see him meeting up with Lex Luger out the back of the WCW taping.
Yep.
And they're alluding to them having a conversation, the commentators, and they basically both just get beaten up by all of the NWO.
Yep.
And that's the kind of recurring storyline that goes on throughout this episode of Thunder.
Yep.
And we'll jump back to what happens with that once we get to the end of Thunder.
Yep.
We get another Goldberg squash, this time over Fit Finlay.
Yeah, I remember Fit Finlay from like what must have been right at the end of his in-ring career. It's weird seeing him look quite young.
Yeah,
it's
a little fitter
strange.
than what we're used to seeing him.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're still building up Goldberg here, and what a good job they're doing of building him as a machine, a monster.
Yep.
We get another kind of these are the kind of guys I'm talking about as far as if you're not in the NWO and you're not sticking out, you're not, you're not really making waves, and you've got a Psychosis versus Chavo Guerrero match which is forgettable. But I suppose you need to have wrestling on your wrestling show at some point, so we get that match there. Then we get another kind of boring Hogan promo similar to the Shawn Michaels ones that we've had issues with on Raw.
Yeah. I don't. We talked about enjoying a lot of things that were going on in a lot of the shows. I think there's definitely more than one occasion where Hogan and Bischoff come out together, and I don't know, it doesn't really do it for me when it's the two of them. And yeah, this is mostly about Savage and then kind of about Sting. Beyond that,
you wouldn't really know if you just caught this. You wouldn't be saying that this was the show before pay-per-view where he's fighting Sting for the title, because it's very much centred on Macho Man. A little bit about Nick Patrick. It's quite odd, but yeah, it does a job as far as Hogan selling himself, which is what the business that he is in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We got another couple of kind of loose matches: Scotty Riggs versus Booker T, Juventud versus Billy Kidman, and we start, or we continue to build the Jericho Juventud Guerrera match that we're going to have at the pay-per-view, which is going to be a mask versus title match. Jericho comes in at the end of the match and tries to take Juve's mask off. But he cleverly knew that this was going to happen and had two masks on. Clever, Juve.
Very clever.
I was very slightly concerned by the Juve juice that he had on his ass of his tights, but we'll leave that one for another day. I've got a wee trivia question for you here, Adam.
Oh no.
We've got the Outsiders come out, and they are having a tag match against Mike Enos and Wayne Bloom. Who are Mike Enos and Wayne Bloom?
I don't know.
Nah. Did you recognise them, or do you remember recognising them?
I don't remember recognising them. I watched the match, and I just thought, well, this is going to be a squash, and then I thought it's actually about the Nash powerbomb storyline that they've got going on. But no, I've clearly missed something pretty obvious here, haven't I?
So the match, as far as the match is concerned, it probably takes them both longer to get to the ring. And like you say, it's further in the powerbomb thing. Scott Hall does his survey, says one more for the bad guys, one more for the good guys thing. That's the Beverly Brothers.
Is it? Oh man, I'm disappointed in myself.
I recognise one of them, so I googled it, and yeah, nobody getting spiked on their head in this match, which is shocking. But yeah, like you say, you get Nash being arrested because, heaven forbid, he uses his finishing move. And what's our boy's name? JJ Dillon.
Yeah,
he'll be straight out there, charismaing the hell out of his promos.
So they sort of reference as well that Hogan is paying the fines.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, so they mention Nash. I feel like the amount of money he's being fined maybe jumps around a couple of times, but anyway.
It does, aye. It goes from 50 to 150 pretty quickly.
But they do mention that Hogan has apparently volunteered to pay these fines for Nash.
What a guy.
Yeah.
See, all these bad things they say about Hollywood Hulk Hogan. We get some odd stuff about Bret Hart here and Bryan Adams having a long black coat on and having an issue with him, and we get Flair helping him out to beat up some members. Like, this is Ric Flair and Bret Hart, and we're clearly setting them up to be involved in some sort of odd feud with Bryan Adams. Bryan Adams, is that right?
Yeah.
Crush.
Yep.
And Kurt Hennig, which obviously Kurt Hennig's Kurt Hennig, but yeah, that's a little weird. But we've got Flair and Bret Hart obviously building some sort of mutual respect, shall we say.
Yeah.
Oddly, with that sort of transitions into the British Bulldog and Jim Neidhart having a tag match against Hennig and Adams.
Yep.
Which is a little bit odd, but it doesn't really come to anything. Anyway.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if Bulldog and Anvil had been... Was this them? Maybe they'd been on a couple of TVs or something like that. Because I think they maybe both asked for their release after what happened with Bret in WWE.
Yeah, that's what happened, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So he's there, but they've not fully affiliated them yet. Because they're obviously Bret, Anvil, Bulldog. It's not like they're working as Heart Foundation, the three of them, but no. they've got his back. It's that type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
We build up the Benoit and DDP match. We're going to have at the pay-per-view by having them tag together. Classic WWE tactic. Stick them together on Raw. Can they cooperate together before their matchup? Taking on Raven and Perry Saturn.
Yeah.
Which again, like I say, is just kind of building that match. And the big part of all of this episode of Thunder, we've built up to what are we supposed to be having here? Sting versus Macho Man?
Yeah, so I think there's supposed to be a match, Sting v Savage, but I was wondering if if you're there, if you've bought a ticket and you've been sold on this match, are you a little bit upset about the way this all goes down? Because I mean, do we even see Sting? You do, but it's kind of
10 seconds.
Yeah, whereas you were maybe expecting an actual full match between these two sort of iconic stars.
Yeah, totally. So the NWO have done such a number on Randy Savage that they beat him down, and 2 hours later, almost, he's still out, and they carry him to the ring like some. I'm not going to reference what potentially could look like that they're carrying him to the ring, but he's got a Sting mask on his face. And they lay him down the middle of the ring, and I think they invite Sting to come to the ring, but this is like WCW staple at the end of these shows where it's just all the NWO in the ring and it's just carnage and chaos.
Yeah.
Sting does eventually. I can't remember if he comes from the sky or if he just walks out. Do you?
Yeah, I think it is from the ceiling, and then he takes out the NWO members. Numbers game starts catching up with him, which I mean, like you say, it is a staple of their TV and their shows at this point. I think so many of them ended with this kind of situation. Luger comes out, to make the save and even up the numbers a little bit. Savage is still a little bit awkwardly just laying,
doesn't move
flat out.
Really impressive.
And they sort of mention, is Luger just here to help Sting, or the sort of, because Savage and Luger are supposed to have this match at Superbrawl, they're referencing, are they in cahoots in some way? Have they come up with some sort of agreement? So the announcers make a point of saying, is he just here to help out his buddy Sting, or did he want to protect Savage as well, just to sort of put that idea in people's minds?
So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here, but did you find it weird that never really went anywhere? Yeah,
I did. And I don't know if it was sort of intentional planting a seed that they weren't going to do anything with, or, I mean, everything you hear about the shows, I think back then, you see the same in WWE now, a plan can change from one day to the next. So maybe they had a plan and maybe they nixed it for whatever reason.
Yeah, possibly, that's a good point. It was intriguing. And I wondered if when we got to the Savage Luger match, if we were maybe just going to have a finger poke of doom type of affair, or somebody just lying down for someone or whatever, but yeah, it didn't go that way. All in all, this episode of Nitro was enjoyable, and Thunder, sorry, was enjoyable, and I was quite looking forward to watching the pay-per-view. Yeah,
same for me. I think I've always been a Savage guy, and I was, finding it quite intriguing what was going on.
I've always been a Savage guy. It's a major flex. You should put that somewhere. I've
always been a macho man guy.
Macho.
Yeah.
Always been a macho guy.
And so I was thinking, stop disrespecting my guy, and it did make me intrigued to see kind of, what was coming next. I think as well, I think we're similar in some of the talents that intrigued us over the years and over these shows, and the thought of having DDP and Chris Benoit I thought was quite a good matchup, good pairing. I always like seeing Jericho, so there was a few things on the show that I thought, that's building something interesting, but it's all kind of overshadowed by the NWO angle, which I'm not really complaining about in this instance, because it feels so big, and you can see why it dominates the stories.
Yeah, totally. So let's jump into Superbrawl 8 then, shall we? February 22nd, 1998, we're in the Cow Palace in San Francisco, which sounds incredibly glamorous. And we are here with The Brain, Tony Schiavone, and Mike Tenay. I
think it is Mike Tenay. Yeah, it is Mike Tenay. Yep.
And we kick off with the WCW World Television Championship. We've got a match between Booker T, the former champion, and Rick Martel, the current champion, who I believe must have won the title maybe on the Nitro previous.
Yeah, I think so.
So the whole stipulation here is that whoever will win will go on to fight Perry Saturn. They'll defend the title against Saturn in the next match. Someone from WCW must have seen something that you and I did not see, Adam, because in the previous WCW pay-per-view that we did, Sold Out, we were less than impressed with Rick Martel, I would say. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I remember liking his character in that he was, this horrendous heel with, when he was the model and all that in WWF. And, he was just your sort of typical mid-card heel. And he had the look and all that. He was a sort of naturally annoying quality about him.
Yeah, kind of arrogance.
Yeah.
That was the name of
his scent.
Yes,
yeah.
That's what I wanted to say as well.
But yeah, it feels like, to me, watching this, the world's massively passed him by and he's still there.
A little bit, yeah. It kind of feels like he's out of time a little bit and struggling to fit in with a gimmick of some description. Yeah. So the plan was for Rick Martel to win this match against Booker T and then to beat Perry Saturn as well. So someone somewhere is really wanting to put him over. Unfortunately for him, during a move. Booker hit him with a hip toss, and he clattered his knee on, I think it was on the bottom rope, and suffered a torn knee ligament as part of the match. So both him and Booker T managed to kind of get to the end of the match and rework things as far as Booker T winning. What did you think of this match as an opener?
Yeah, I didn't actually know until you mentioned to me the fact that this wasn't the way it was supposed to go down. I thought what they were actually doing was trying to make Booker look strong, getting his belt back.
Me too,
yeah. But I think, you have to admire the talents for, being clear-headed enough to change things on the fly and make sure that the crowd are going to get their 2 matches out of the situation. I think I didn't find it a great match. I don't know if I'm just put off by Martel, because I like Booker T and I always have. I struggled to get into it a little bit. I thought it was okay. I thought, Booker executed a few moves, and he has a few moves that look pretty good. And I think what I'm used to seeing on WCW shows is something like with cruiserweights or something like that start the show to really get it off to a fast start. Yeah, and it didn't feel like that. So yeah, a little bit underwhelming for me.
I felt like that as well. And however, what I would say is the crowd are heavily into Booker T.
Yeah,
this is a rematch of the previous pay-per-view, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Aye, and I remember thinking that the crowd weren't taking what Martel was trying to give them as far as getting the crowd going and all that. I feel like the crowd really liked Booker T, but I felt similar to you that it wasn't really massively engaging, and I felt the same about the Booker T Perry Saturn match, which is what we get after this one. After Booker T hits, what does he hit him with? Some sort of flying kick.
Harlem sidekick.
Harlem sidekick, nice.
Yeah.
Martel comes off the ropes, and Booker hits him with that. But fair play to Martel for, if he's suffered a torn knee ligament and he's still going up on the second and top rope and jumping off of there, then fair play to him.
Absolutely.
And then Booker T and Perry Saturn have to put this match together on the fly, which again is, in retrospect, is really impressive.
Yeah.
And fair play to them. Unfortunately, it just didn't really engage me too much at all.
Yeah, I was the same. And I think because I look at Booker T as being a bigger star than that level, that level of opponent, that not necessarily that level of title, because I know the role of that title is basically, you work every show type thing. And I'm fine with that, but I think the opposition he had weren't really grabbing me. And I quite liked Perry Saturn back in the day, but not, I don't know.
You had a Moppy t-shirt, did you know?
I couldn't find one, couldn't get one. I would have worn it with pride if I could have. But yeah, here he's part of Raven's flock, and that I can see how that would suit him, that sort of character. Yep. But yeah, it just didn't. Same with you. It just didn't grab me.
I'd said to you on text when I was watching this, why does Saturn keep going for submissions and pinfalls right next to the ropes? Because I think he does it about 3 different times. But the fact that they're putting it together on the fly would explain that. And yeah, I definitely, at the time I was like, this is quite hard to watch actually. Looking back and knowing what they've had to do, fair play to them. Yeah. I think if you didn't know all that happened, I would say that this was a really good idea, especially to have Booker wrestling both matches and winning both matches, and it just piles on the kind of the momentum behind him that his character sort of deserves to have. Yeah, because I think here he'd still be a couple of years away from getting near or into the main event picture, but you can see the trajectory he's on, because he's no longer in the tag team. He's got a singles title, and yeah, you can sort of look at it as a mid-card title, but as we mentioned before, it is the title that's pretty much defended on every show. So it's a good way for him to get over. And he's still very much transitioning from being in the Harlem Heat. He's still got aspects of the tag team associated with him. So this feels like a really good way to push him.
Yeah.
Next up was another match that I found that I struggled with. Disco Inferno versus our boy La Parka. I was very high on La Parka in the previous pay-per-view that we watched him on, Sold Out, which he was involved in a 8-man tag team match.
Yep.
And he just went berserk and smashed everybody with chairs, and did a crazy dance, and he was really quite entertaining. Here we've got him feuding with Disco Inferno over who can dance better. I think that's the kind of
that was Mike Tinney did say. Well, he speculated that this could be a rivalry over dance steps, as they both like to strut their stuff. So it's as good a reason as any to have a feud.
Hey, listen, there's been much worse reasons for matches in the past. So what do you think of this?
I noticed, there were a few decent looking high spots and things like that. I think the biggest issue I had with it is I just didn't really care when I was watching it. Yep. Again, with not having a sort of, a proper story behind them. Some decent moves, but I wasn't really engaged in it while I was watching it, to be honest. I didn't know, because I've not seen a huge amount of Disco Inferno over the years. It just looked like a stunner he used for the win. Yeah,
and it got a big pop as well. It's quite funny.
I wasn't sure if he actually had that as a finisher move for a while, or if that was just we'll do this, see what sort of reaction we get.
No, that was his finishing move. I can't remember what he called it, but that was his finishing move. Like to see Stone Cold in those white chinos, see how he could move. There was like La Parka's entertaining, and he does all these sort of crazy moves off the, bouncing off the ropes and jumps to the outside, and right at the very start of the match he just throws the chair at Disco Inferno. It's quite entertaining. We need a bit more of that, but I was the same as you. I struggle with this one. And eventually, like you say, Disco Inferno hits his version of the stunner, and that's all she wrote for La Parka, unfortunately. I think you can get away with a match without a storyline where it is something like those 8-men tag matches where it's high-paced chaos. A one-on-one match kind of needs to lend itself to something in the background.
And it just didn't seem to have anything. I think the fact that they mentioned the thing about they both like to dance, I think that put me off more than that's not going to drag me in. It's
not intriguing you. No. Okay. Well, it's not the greatest of starts then, has it? I mean,
it's not great, and I'm thinking I enjoyed this show, so it must pick up pretty soon.
Yeah. So the next match, I think. So after this Disco Inferno La Parka match finishes. Sorry, have I missed Charisma Vacuum JJ Dillon?
JJ Dillon comes out after this match.
Okay.
It's between this and the next, so you're on track.
So we get JJ Dillon being interviewed by Mean Gene, and he's asking about the referee situation, and we bring out Kenny Powers to get interviewed.
I'm starting to think he was based on Nick Patrick.
He's even got the accent. His accent's exactly like that as well.
It's you can't not see it. We both saw it independently of each other, and I think I messaged you saying, does he remind you of someone? Yeah. And it's wow.
It's brilliant.
I now can't unsee it, so every time I see Nick Patrick, that's it.
So Kenny Powers, he's moaning about his back pay, and moaning about he'd been suspended. Had he been suspended right after Starrcade in November? Was it November?
I think that's right, yeah.
After he'd completely botched the Hogan Sting finish.
Yeah.
And then I believe I think he botched it the next night on Nitro as well. They tried to have a rematch.
Okay.
And it got botched there as well. So that's why we've ended up with Hogan Sting for this main event of this pay-per-view. So JJ I'm surprised he didn't get Roddy Piper to make this decision for him, but they reinstate Nick Patrick, Kenny Powers, and he's like, yes, I can be the referee in the main event, and JJ pulls the carpet out from underneath him and tells him that he won't be.
Yep.
And you're at this point in time, you're being led to believe that Patrick's working with the NWO, and he really wants to referee the match so that he can screw Sting over and win the title for Hogan. So we're setting the table for that later on.
Yeah.
Before all this happens, though, or maybe just after, we get Tony Schiavone telling us that we're going to be back in 2 with, what does he describe it as? It's like a special match or a bonus, or it builds it up as something. It's going to be, you're going to be like, oh wow, Ric Flair versus Bret Hart or something like that. Something not advertised or something like that. So what we were originally supposed to have here was Louis Piccoli versus Larry Zbyszko. Following on from Zbyszko's match with Scott Hall at the previous pay-per-view, we'd continued the storyline, I believe, between the NWO and Zbyszko.
Yeah.
And Scott Hall's sort of young lackey, this Louis Piccoli that he had with him come out to the ring, he was going to be taking on Larry Legend. Unfortunately, Piccoli passed away, I think, a week before this event.
Yeah.
So that match was scrapped. Instead, we're treated to a rematch of a match we got on one of the Nitros in January, which was Brad Armstrong attempting to overcome the Armstrong curse against Bill Goldberg. So, we know what we're getting here, don't we?
Yeah. It's got a squash match written all over it, and to be honest, I was surprised. I think he got to execute one offensive move.
He did,
but it was totally no-sold by Goldberg.
He tried to do his Russian leg sweep thing, which I think was his finishing move.
Yeah.
So this went 2 minutes. 2 minutes 23 seconds, and ironically, this was my favourite match on the card so far. I think I messaged you about this. Goldberg at one point put him in a pump handle slam sort of position and just let him go. He threw him up in the air and let him go. It was wild. I've never seen him do that before. Probably why. Maybe that was the first and last time.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be like Goldberg to hurt someone in the ring, surely?
Controversial.
But I think I said it about when on the episode of Thunder, we're building Goldberg in a really slow and really sensible manner as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, he's going in there and he's destroying people, and they know. I mean, he's already pretty over with the crowd. They can only have seen him a few times, and there's a reaction, and I think they mention he's on an undefeated run, and they maybe say something like he may be unbeatable. So they're trying to put him over, despite the fact he's probably never wrestled a name, or anyone with any credentials. But as you say, I think they're building him quite intelligently. It's slow. It's against jobbers basically, but he's looking pretty emphatic when he wins. So it did the job it had to do. I've no issue with these not being great matches. I think they're serving the exact purpose that they need to.
Yeah, it's really surprising. Think about modern day that he would be right in the middle of this NWO versus WCW feud probably. Yeah. Or they'd be saying something like, "Could he be the man?" I'm really impressed, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes as well.
Yep.
Our next match is an expected highlight, I would say. Yeah. We've got our WCW Cruiserweight Champion, Chris Jericho, facing off against Juventud Guerrera for a title versus mask match. this really did everything that I hoped it would do as far as the action was concerned. How did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it, and I was expecting to. I like you. I think I thought I'll enjoy this. I liked Guerrero coming out, you know, as if he's the big fan favourite, or acting like he's a big fan favourite. He then, I think it was a pro Jericho sign that he walks over to and tears up, and all the while,
it is. So someone would have been a Jerichoholic or something.
Yeah. And I like all that stuff. And then all the while, Mike Tenay's telling us about the importance of the mask. So in Mexican wrestling, you basically earn the right to wear a mask, and then from that point onwards, you're really never supposed to be without it.
Yeah.
So this whole proposed unmasking was quite a big deal.
And Tenay's really the only one that makes anything of it.
Yeah,
they're underselling the whole thing here, I think.
Yeah, they do, and you would think because apparently I'm sure I've heard somewhere on a podcast that he had to be talked into this. You know, Juventud, he wasn't up for this really. I think the view of Bischoff was I can't market someone when I can't see their face type thing.
Madness.
You know, it's not really logical, and I think for some it was seen as a bit ignorant to the traditions of Mexican and lucha wrestling. So yeah, I thought it was good to have someone on the panel that was trying to underline the importance of that, but it doesn't really get across when the rest aren't really selling that at all.
Nah, and realistically, we talked about the Thunder where Jericho tries to pull off the mask, but you probably want some sort of impassioned promo about what it means to wear the mask.
Yeah.
For Juventud, what it means to his family, and you know, like he makes reference. I think he makes reference to his dad when he's about to take the mask off and says "I love you" to the camera and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, we could probably have done with building it up a wee bit more, and all that would have done is add to the storyline, because the action in the ring's really, really entertaining.
Yeah, I also enjoyed Jericho keeping the belt on. Like he's
What's that?
It came across to me as he's so, I don't know, insecure that he needs to be wearing it all the time. He can't cope with not having it on.
Yeah.
And then he's refusing to take it off to start the match, and the ref allows the match to start, and then he takes a kick in the belt, which wins him, and then sort of convinces him to take it off. But I quite enjoyed that. I just thought it's weird, it's different, but I thought it's just adding another little kink to the heel character that he's portraying here, which I enjoyed.
I've never seen anyone do that before.
No.
Which is saying something given the amount of wrestling that we've seen between us.
Yeah.
Again, like we've talked about this before, but Jericho seems to be operating without any sort of direction as far as his character is concerned, and everything that he does is just getting himself over big time. Yeah.
I thought the actual, you know, in-match action was really good, and probably as expected. You know, you've got some really impressive moves from Juventud Guerrera, some top rope moves that just look fantastic. They get to a point where, was it a 360 splash? Is that what he was doing? 450. I've undersold it a little bit. And he thinks he's won the match, but because the 3 count goes, but Jericho's hands on the rope. So it just adds a little bit of tension, a little bit of emotion, because the bell actually rings.
Yes.
And then the ref's waving it off because he's seen the hand, and they're sort of selling the announcers are sort of selling the confusion from that situation.
Yep. And
Jericho basically uses the distraction to take out Juventud's knee and then go on the attack. From there on, some nice counters. I just thought it was quite a pretty good wrestling match, telling a good story.
Yeah, it was, and I'm just looking on Wikipedia here, and it's surprising to see that it only went 13 minutes, because it felt like a longer match to me.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
not in a it dragged on kind of way, but there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
I liked that once that had happened and he'd hit him with a 450, like you said, and he'd had his hand on the rope. I like that it wasn't then a quick roll up or anything like that. We then went back into action, and like you said, you have flashbacks to the Rey Mysterio assault where he went to town on his leg, and I thought that's where we were going as well. Really good finish is something that I don't think I've seen or don't remember seeing. The whole Juve going for the Hurricane Rana and Jericho sort of trapping him in the Lion Tamer. I really liked that finish, particularly given how effective the sort of manoeuvres had been for Guerrera during the match as well.
Yeah.
So probably definitely the best match on the card so far.
Yep.
Jericho retains his title. Oh, something we've not mentioned actually that probably needs to be mentioned when we're talking about Jericho's character. At one point, Juve knocks him out the ring with something quite impressive, and Jericho just lies down outside, and he's trying to get himself counted out, and every now and again he's just kind of lay prone on the floor, and he'll have a quick look up to see if the referee's still counting, and the fans are eating it up and giving him abuse lying on the floor. And again, another wee wrinkle to his character of being this kind of sneaky, dastardly, cheeky little heel.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah. So when he's retained his title and Juventud has to unmask, and Jericho really sells that segment as well with telling the crowd to look away if they're queasy. And then rips the mask off because he feels like Juventud's taking too long to unmask and do what he's obliged to do. So yeah, just when I was watching it, I felt a little bit for Juventud, just knowing that he never wanted to do this. He had no interest in unmasking and things like that, and just how probably conflicted you maybe are about something like that. Because obviously it must be sold to you in a way that, you know, you do this, we'll do this with you and things like that, but I don't remember there being much of a payoff for him. Nah,
that'll be interesting to see when we go to the next month to see where he is and what he's doing.
Yeah.
Apparently, you know, he takes his mask off and then he's kind of got his hair over his face for a little while. He was apparently crying underneath his hair.
Yeah.
Which, like, that's what we're saying. It feels kind of undersold.
Yeah.
And just on Juventud Guerrera, am I right in saying he was in WWE or WWF as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Tell me this is wrong. Was he in a group called the Mexicals?
Now, there definitely was a group with that name, but I can't remember for sure who was in it.
I'm going to look.
He may well have been.
Because I want to say that they came out in, like... This is ridiculous. I want to say that they came out in, like grass cutter, lawnmower type things.
Yep, they did.
Is that true?
Yep, that's definitely real.
That's absolutely ridiculous. Super crazy Juventud and Psychosis, the Mexicals.
Yeah.
They interrupted a match between Chavo Guerrero and Paul London by riding to the ring on lawnmowers and attacking.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
That's not great.
That's awful. That's 2005.
Yeah.
What are we doing, Vince?
Yeah.
Dear me. That's almost like calling someone that everybody's heard of from NXT UK Dewdrop or whatever it is that they're...
Yeah.
Anyway. Poor Juve, an incredible in-ring wrestler, that's for sure, and a very handsome young man as well.
Yeah.
Dare say so. So that was a great match, and like we said, the highlight so far. And from the sublime, Adam, to the ridiculous. We get British Bulldog making his pay-per-view debut in WCW. Do you know what interested? Well, I mean, this is obviously what I was thinking about during this 6 minutes of hell. But I was wondering how he's able to be called the British Bulldog in WCW, but other guys have to go as, you know, Bryan Adams or Scott Hall or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, that would suggest he owned the trademark for the name, which is pretty rare. But I suppose when I think about it, if he and Dynamite Kid were the British Bulldogs before they went to WWE, he might have trademarked it
maybe.
when he wasn't even in the company. Because I'm sure I know they were in Stampede, and I'm not 100% sure if they went by the name British Bulldogs there. But yeah, if he's taken the name, the WWE mustn't have owned the rights. I just don't think they would have allowed it.
Yeah, because we get the music. He's got the whole music. He's got the whole gimmick with the tights and the flag and all that. I'm fairly sure. I'm sure if Vince McMahon could trademark the UK flag, then he would. The Union Jack. But anyway, we just describe this match for us, Adam.
Okay, so I can talk you through my notes, right? Because what I've written is physical match between the two. They're both very limited. McMichael in particular. And then, for some reason, I go straight to Bulldog wins via armbar.
Aye.
Although McMichael didn't tap out, he's annoyed the match ended.
He's raging.
McMichael pushes down the ref and storms out. I didn't obviously see an awful lot in the match to put in my notes based on that.
That's basically it, though.
That I definitely thought that they were both pretty limited.
Yeah. So Bulldog versus Mongo McMichaels. Is it Mongo or Moon? I think it's Mongo, isn't it?
It's Mongo, yeah.
I feel really uncomfortable both saying that and writing it down. Steve McMichaels, I understand, went into this match with a broken wrist.
Okay.
And they used this match as a way of sort of writing him off. I mean, WCW didn't have to do that for us. You could have just sent him away to get his wrist sorted out. But at some point they both end up outside the ring. McMichael goes to punch the British Bulldog. Bulldog moves and Mongo punches the ring, and Bulldog uses this to submit him. It's absolute garbage.
Yeah.
Thankfully it's 6 minutes of absolute garbage, so
yeah,
it
you
doesn't
can
take
cope
up
with
much
that.
of our time. Exactly. Shame for the British Bulldog. I think as a kid he was this larger than life character to us.
Yeah, I mean, you have memories like, what SummerSlam was it?
92.
Yeah, with him and Brett, and he always seemed, like you said, larger than life. I mean, he was as big or as broad as anyone, and I then sort of went back and saw some of the earlier stuff, the tag stuff, and they were brilliant. He and Dynamite Kid were a brilliant team. But I think certainly before this stage, I think he's probably been struggling for a while, because I think he's in and out of the companies a bit. I think, to be honest, I can't see that when he asked for his release off the back of the Brett situation, I very much doubt that Vince was like, no, keep him, do anything you can. I think he was probably pretty comfortable letting him go.
I think by this point he probably had well-known issues as far as drugs were concerned.
Yeah, I quite liked him in the Heart Foundation stable when they put the four of them together, because I felt like, you had Brett as the leader, you had Owen as this, really good worker who was entertaining as hell and all that, and then the sort of two powerhouse guys, and then Pillman, and that really worked as a faction. But when he's out there on his own, it doesn't do anything for me anymore. Nah,
sorry Bulldog, and please keep Steve McMichael away from anything.
Yeah,
no more. Anyway, we move on to something fairly awesome after this. So we've got our singles match for the United States Heavyweight Championship. We've got DDP, who is the current champion, taking on Chris Benoit.
Yep.
This to me was probably the best match on the card.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. I think it was one, we I think at the end of the last podcast we sort of looked ahead at the card once we'd stopped recording, and I thought this one leapt out as one that I would enjoy. I could never remember the timeline for DDP from when I know he's not near main event picture yet here, but he certainly seems to be making some kind of a breakthrough, and He's having good matches against good opponents. This is for the US heavyweight title. They put a real big onus on the fact that the two of them have a lot of respect for each other.
Yep.
And they want this to be just between them. They've obviously had their issues with the flock, and they want, basically they just want a wrestling match between the two. And I like the story it tells in the ring, because it starts that way and then it breaks down a little bit and becomes more of a brawl.
It's a bit dirty, yep.
Yeah, which is good and pretty. I always think that style is pretty logical storytelling. At some point somebody's going to do something that irritates the other. I thought it was a really good match.
I think we always know what we'll get when we've got Benoit. I think previous pay-per-view he wrestled Raven, and we were both looking forward to that one as well.
Yep.
Probably a bit of a clash of styles as far as Benoit and Raven are concerned, but it worked.
Yeah.
Here I was really, really pleasantly surprised by DDP. He's a big guy and he's moving like a cruiserweight at times.
Yeah.
Similarly, Benoit's picking him up and throwing him about like he's a cruiserweight. Really, really impressed with the way that they sort of gelled in the ring, with the moves that they were carrying out. It's really, really impressive. If you get the chance to watch any match on this card, I would encourage people to watch this one, definitely.
Yeah, the announcers are also selling the fact that one of them has to avoid getting caught in the diamond cutter, and the other has to avoid getting caught in the crossface. And that just applies, it provides all kind of logic, and the sort of knowledge that either can take the other out with their finisher, or it's almost sold as you can take anyone out with one of these finishers. So I thought that was a good layer to the story as well. Yeah,
really big sort of RKO type thing that's going on with the diamond cutter, and you can see where a lot of that's come from. This has obviously been the sort of birth of that for DDP. Both guys are heavily over, but it never feels like a sort of face versus face match where it's just a bit doesn't really do it for you. This feels like two tough guys, like you said. They've got that respect between each other and they're going at it. It's really good. In the end, it's the diamond cutter that prevails. DDP hits him with it and you get 1, 2, 3. I don't believe there's any sort of shenanigans at all.
No, I think he leaves through the crowd after it.
That's his gimmick though.
And I always think it's a pretty cool visual, because the crowd, I think, are pretty well behind him by this point. I don't know all the ins and outs of the stories with him, but I think it took him quite a while to be, accepted as a, genuine wrestler. I think he was seen by a lot of the locker room as Bischoff's friend, which I think he was. I think they had contacts before he really established himself in the wrestling game. So I think it took him a little while to get the respect, but you can tell it's there now, and he's growing and being built.
I don't ever like this is all new to me as far as DDP's concerned. I don't really ever remember watching him on WCW at all. And obviously the stuff to do with the invasion and the Undertaker's wife Stalker and all that sort of stuff, and then moving on to his kind of like tapping into his real life persona, the kind of positive power of positivity sort of character that he was doing. Like, all of that pales in comparison to this. He's just this charismatic sort of badass. It's brilliant.
Yeah, he's not. He won't be there in the year we cover, but he does end up in title picture and angles with Hogan and all that.
Right.
But you can see how from what he is here, you can see how he gets there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he's building as it goes. I think he had quite a year or so after this. Maybe he had quite a big program with Savage, and there's a famous story of. I think Savage won a whole host of the matches between the two, and then DDP had said, I think it was before a pay-per-view, what do you want to do tonight? And Savage told him, I think it's time for me to look at the lights and take the diamond cutter. So he always praised Savage because he felt like that was the point where he moved up a level.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it's simple to say, but I suppose the egos will play a part. But Savage doesn't need to beat DDP, you know. So it's good that he did that. But yeah, I think we're probably a year away or so away from that build here.
Great. Again, it'd be interesting to watch his climb as far as the year goes on. Just circling back to Benoit, this like really underlined to me just how just I think, as far as what we've watched so far, and I know we're only in February, but I think he's probably the best in-ring performer that we've seen.
Yeah.
Between WWF and WCW at this point, he's just on another level as far as actual wrestling's concerned.
Yeah, and it's good that there's a role for that, because you know so much of it is NWO dominated, but you need these guys that are having really solid matches as well. And you mentioned earlier some that you don't really care about, but a match between these two you do care about.
Yeah.
And it was one of the standout matches on the card, and I would think you're right. As we go through the year, we'll probably find a few Benoit ones being standout matches on the card.
Yeah, no doubt at all. Okay, our next matchup was the aforementioned Lex Luger versus Macho Man Randy Savage match, which we'd kind of been fed breadcrumbs that they might be in cahoots. And yeah, this was a little bit odd for me. It's quite a short match.
Yeah.
We're being told a lot by the commentary team that it's a non-disqualification match. Luger's got the bandages on the ribs. I mean, how many rolls of bandages he got on those ribs?
Yeah, he might as well have painted a target on them if it was if that was a real contest. That wouldn't be wise to sell it quite that much. But yeah, I think he just needed to make sure people knew that, you know, if you go for the ribs, you're probably going to have some success against him here.
Yeah, and he sells it. He tries to press Savage right at the start and drops him because he starts feigning on the ribs. So he's not forgotten that he is supposed to be hurt, which is impressive for Luger. Something a little weird with this match as far as seeing Luger, Savage and Elizabeth all together in a match, given what's happened between obviously the sort of couple of Randy Savage and Elizabeth, but also what we know happened between Elizabeth and Lex Luger, and what has been portrayed as the kind of negative impact he had on her life as far as what happened when she died, and drugs and all that sort of stuff. So a little bit odd for that point of view, seeing them all together. Yeah,
I don't know what the timeline would be. I mean, I'm absolutely sure Savage and Elizabeth are not together by this stage.
Really?
In real, yeah. And I'm not sure if she would be with Luger at this stage. It might be a little bit early for that to have happened.
Right.
But I think when she was brought into WCW, they weren't together anymore, and they just thought. I think Bischoff wanted to see her as a heel, because she did some things that influenced matches in the WWF days, but she was never really a heel.
No,
she would. I think in this she rake Luger's eyes or something like that.
Yeah, he's got Savage up in going for the torture rack, I think, or he's at least trying to, and she comes in the ring and rakes his eyes, like you say. So
she used to do like distractions and things like that, but you didn't really see her physically getting involved in anything. So apparently Bischoff thought that she would be good in a role like that. I think she is good at it, to be fair. Yeah, and I suppose the first couple of times you see it, you'll be really surprised by it. She'll be like, "Not Elizabeth, no, she wouldn't do that." Well, no. Yeah, but yeah, I think again from other podcasts, it sounds like that was part of the idea of bringing her in, was to have her a little bit more of a heel, and I think she had the ability to do it. I think I find it hard to, I don't know, differentiate between what she was here and what she was previously, but she does make sure that she's now willing to do extra steps to make sure her guy wins the match and things like that. As far as this match and the action is concerned, there's not much action to really comment on.
things turn into shenanigans and chaos and NWO carnage in a hurry. We have the likes of Hogan and all the NWO reserves coming down. Vincent and who else did we have coming out here? The Bagwell, Conan, all the kind of
very, very much the B squad, but
the cup squad. If Arsene Wenger was in charge of NWO, these guys would be playing the League Cup.
I think everyone would have expected some sort of NWO interference in this match, but what they're going to do, as you know, to further the stories, is Hogan actually stops the NWO from saving Savage while Luger's got him in the torture rack.
That's right.
And you've got Hogan shouting out that he's glad Savage got beat, and the implication from all this, although it'll further a bit more the next day, is that Hogan he's done with Savage. Savage is out, and he's, as I mentioned earlier, he was always a big favourite of mine, regardless of whether he was playing babyface or heel. And I always enjoyed. I think they mentioned, they used the word lunatic a few times, like Savage is the lunatic of the NWO, and I think he's even referred to as he is a lunatic, but he's our lunatic and things like that. I just always feel like he brings a different kind of energy to things. So in a way, I'm quite glad with the way the story's going here, because it's very easy for someone who's not Hogan, Nash, Hall to get lost in the NWO mix. And I quite like the thought of Savage being separated from that.
Yeah, like you were saying, you like him whether he's face or heel, but he's kind of sitting on the fence here as far as where he is in relation to NWO, but also in relation to the faces in WCW. And I think it's the perfect place for Macho Man to sit with this sort of, like you says, lunatic there. It's the perfect place for him to sit with that persona. I was a little confused about why this match ended. I wasn't sure if the referee, like I said, they make a big deal of saying this is a non-DQ match. I wasn't sure if it was finished because of a disqualification, but I think we're supposed to think that Savage verbally quit. Is that right? Yeah, I think so. I had to sort of re-look at that one, because I was like, it's no DQ, so I thought either he's quit in the torture rack or the refs kind of waved the whole thing off. So I wasn't sure exactly which way it had gone from that. A little bit out of character for Savage to quit.
Yeah.
But either way, They're really putting over the torture rack, aren't they? Like, is this like superior finishing move?
Yeah, it's not one, because again, having been more of a WWF guy back in the old days, my memory was of like he had some forearm move. And the story was he had a metal plate in his forearm, and it was just knocking people out. But he also used to be able to body slam, very bit like body slam Yokozuna and things like that. I don't really remember him using the torture rack in WWF.
Nah, he would have struggled to get Yokozuna up there, to be fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
Might have struggled. But I think he does hit Savage with the forearm, and they make a big deal of it. But then Savage gets up, and I remember thinking, well, I used to use that to knock out Yokozuna. Like, you could probably see Savage having a pretty hard head, to be fair.
Yeah.
Next match we've been building up to for a while. We've got the tag team champions, the Steiner brothers, with $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, going up against the Outsiders, Nash and Hall, with Dusty Rhodes. This, I don't know about you, but this with the managers and the two kind of big tag teams, this had a kind of big match feel to it for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I said to you previously, I think in a way I wished when I watched this I didn't know what was going to happen. Because they've talked and they've shown you the story of the issues between Scott and Rick Steiner as they've been going through matches and other shows. The Scott, his sort of ego getting in the way a lot of the time. He's wrestling tag matches on his own, refusing to tag his brother in.
Yep.
And then they sort of play up this story that everything's okay. They've hashed things out. They've got their belts back. They're together. They're going to take on the Outsiders. And it's I was trying to think, if I didn't know, would I have bought all that, because you get interview segments and stuff where Rick's doing all the talking and Scott's just stood in the background. He's not actually saying anything. And then they walk off, and he does. It's obviously intentional, but he's still looking a bit disengaged from the whole thing, which is pretty cleverly done, the way they've set it up and left you guessing. But as I say, I just wish when I actually was watching this that I didn't know what was about to happen, because I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more. Yeah,
it's a bit like the Dusty turn at the previous pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was going to happen. I was quite shocked, but I think you'd said that you knew it was coming.
Yeah.
So this is a vehicle to get Scott Steiner from babyface tag teamer to devious heel NWO VIII.
Yeah.
As Hogan would say. So we have Rick sort of taking out both Outsiders to start us off with, and then he starts running around the ring, and Scott gets in the ring, and they do their sort of pose that they do where Rick goes underneath him in between Scott's legs, and they look at the hard camera, but instead of them posing, Scott then winks at both Nash and Hall and drops a double axe handle on his brother with a dastardly heel turn.
Despicable.
How could he do that to his brother? He's a dog-faced gremlin, for God's sake.
Yeah. It was, even watching it back, I enjoyed it. I mean, the setup, in hindsight, it's all there. It's quite obvious, but it's. I thought it was pretty well executed. I thought the fact that even with the winks to the members of the Outsiders, because of the pose they're in, Rick can't possibly see what Scott's just done, which is, it just allows you to have that disbelief of, oh God, he didn't know that was coming. Yeah,
he's in a really vulnerable position, isn't he?
And then they sort of play on the fact as the rest of the match goes, because Rick actually miraculously kicks out after an attack and keeps the match going, and they've got Scott is actually, I think he's gone to the Outsiders' corner as Rick's fighting the match, and then there's a moment where Rick's being lifted up and he'd be able to see Scott, and I think they sort of speculate, Rick could be out of it, he might not even know what's going on or what happened to him and things like that. So they were doing everything they could to play up the emotion, the whole brothers side of things.
Yep.
I think poor Ted DiBiase takes a hit from Scott as well.
Ted, aye.
Yeah.
He takes a beating, poor Ted.
Yeah. I enjoyed it, even watching it back. It was this. I take it. Did you know it was coming?
I think I did. Yes.
Right.
Aye. I still liked it. I still liked the whole thing, and the fact that it's Nash and Hall, and not like Bagwell and Conan or something like that, gives it a much sort of bigger feel as far as where Scott Steiner might be going.
Yeah.
The only sort of regretful thing that I think is, where does Rick Steiner now go, and what does he do?
Yeah.
Like, you can see probably the immediate future is going to be trying to get revenge on Scott. And we obviously know what happens with Scott Steiner, although I don't know an awful lot of the story. I just know that what he ends up looking like and what he ends up behaving like, and something happens to him that means he can't do maths anymore. But it's going to be interesting to see where that goes, and to see where he fits in within the NWO hierarchy and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, like you say, I think it's a good thing that they've, with it being Nash and Hall, they kind of immediately elevate him. He it feels like he's not one of these hangers-on. He is one of the... Yeah, he is one of the key members of the NWO moving forward. I was hearing, apparently they weren't keen, Scott and Rick, and this was, I think, maybe third attempt or something like that. Wow. They just wanted to stay a team, and I think eventually they managed to sell Scott on it because they positioned it as where, you know, you're going to be a, you know, high on the card, you're going to be one of the main heels, and eventually went for it. I'm not sure. Obviously, it does feel like it leaves Rick in limbo a little bit because, like you say, I imagine they have a match or two, but then where then for Rick? But it's really interesting thinking about the sort of, again, the dynamic of the guy that maybe didn't want to turn. I imagine he found his feet and he, you know, got quite into the idea because the character he became was so over the top and things like that. So it is funny to think, looking back, he didn't really want to do this.
And just jumping forward to the next night on Nitro, you see the transformation pretty much almost already has begun as far as the look of him. He's got the bleach blonde hair, comes out with sunglasses on, and he just looks different. Literally looks different.
Yeah.
And he's embraced that heel side, and it looks cool, I would say.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, going to be interested to see where that goes. I think the fact that Scott Steiner literally hands the tag team belts to the Outsiders just puts the whole, just makes it feel just a bit dirtier.
Yeah. It really underlines it. You know, there's he's not only has he done this to his brother, but he's handed them the titles. Literally handed them the titles. Yeah. It's good. I enjoyed the whole storyline, and I thought it was well executed. And the only issue, and we've mentioned this before, the NWO are already feeling quite bloated, and I think it's, you know, it's still got a way to go before we get to where it ends up. But I was listening to a podcast from Kevin Sullivan, and he was talking about the NWO, and he's obviously heavily involved in the writing and the booking and things like that throughout this era, and he was saying that he hated how bloated it got, but he loved the fact that they put Scott Steiner in because he had been the tag guy, and he felt like for him to get up to that level, he was the exact right type to put in there with them. You immediately make a star, and you make one that can be in a main event, and it's basically aligning him with those core NWO guys was all it took.
Yeah. Interesting. This is a weird question, but are the Steiner brothers legit brothers?
Yes.
Are they?
Yeah. I think their surnames are Rick Steiner. Rick Steiner.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so Rick's full name is almost his surname. And yeah, they are legit brothers, and they're, you know, all their college credentials that were always played up, I think they're all genuine as well.
Michigan boys, weren't they?
Yep.
You're not going to tell me that Scott's real name's Big Bad Booty Daddy or anything like that, are you?
No.
That would be an odd name.
No, his name is just Scott Richsteiner.
Wow.
It's a bit underwhelming now after you mentioned that, but yeah.
Sorry. Oh well, there you go. Interesting. So we get to our main event. Sting versus Hollywood Hulk Hogan for the vacant WCW World Heavyweight Championship. This went long, much longer than I remember. I think it's the longest match on the card. It is.
Yeah, this was actually the point when I realised. I think I messaged you about it. I didn't know until I watched this that Triple H's opening, you know,
let's get ready to suck it.
Yeah, I didn't know that he was basically ripping off Michael Buffer, because it's basically all the spiel that's said through. Triple H says a version of that in his, and I don't know if I just never paid attention to what was being said, or whether I just didn't watch enough WCW events to realise it, but it just clicked the other day when I was watching it, and I was thinking, I feel a bit stupid now, because that should have been really obvious from the start.
I didn't realise that Michael Buffer was so heavily involved in WCW. I didn't realise that he did, like, you know, there's some Nitro matches that he does and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought they maybe just brought him in as like an attraction to make a main event sound a lot bigger than what it was. But
yeah, I think he only ever did, even though he did TV and stuff like that, I think he only ever did the main event announcement. So it was, I'm sure Bischoff said that he felt it elevated the match, having him as the ring announcer for it. Made it seem, gave it that big fight feel, you know, all that kind of thing. So he would deliberately use him quite sparingly. Also, apparently, he didn't come cheap, so that's maybe another reason for using him quite sparingly.
There you go. Just talking about people, I don't want to say that. People not coming cheap is what I was going to say, but that sounds wrong. But apparently, I had read that Bischoff wanted to get Johnny Cochran involved in this pay-per-view. He was obviously part of the team that represented O.J. Simpson, I think in the same year or the year before, maybe. Right. With this whole Kenny Powers, J.J. Dillon stuff with the contract and whether or not he was coming back, he wanted to get Johnny Cochran involved in Kenny Powers. What's his name? Nick Patrick. Oh God, confused.
That's going to be a thing for the entire rest of this year. That's going to be a thing.
So apparently he wanted to get him involved in that, which, you know, I don't know how much that might have elevated things, but apparently he eventually ended up turning it down. I think it had been a lot of money for WCW to try and get him.
Okay.
And also, they'd wanted to get Evander Holyfield to guest ref this match as well.
Wow.
The Sting Hogan match.
Okay.
I mean, like, some things that they do are just obvious copies of each other.
Yeah.
Both WCW and WWF, but getting Evander Holyfield to ref this might have just been too far, too much.
Because I suppose Tyson would have been on TV. Well, we've seen him, but we haven't yet got to Mania, have we? So, yeah, they're maybe just trying to. Would there be the same sort of crowd reaction for Evander Holyfield?
I don't know. I remember Phoebe was a big fan of Evander Holyfield and Friends.
Wow.
When she was pregnant.
That's some memory you've got there. Was there something about a cardboard cutout or something like that? Yeah. To me, you know, he was obviously a hugely successful boxer, but I don't know if he's got that sort of. I mean, Tyson is known. We talked about Hogan the same way. He's known beyond boxing. I don't know if Holyfield is really.
Tyson had that outlaw edge that he. Obviously, the whole point why WWF were able to get him because he wasn't able to box. Yeah. Just completely added to the whole thing, and so yeah, I don't know either. Although you could have had Macho Man hitting Hogan with like a George Foreman grill at the end of the match.
Love it, brilliant.
Surprised Bischoff never thought of that.
Yeah, I would have been totally up for that. That would be great.
So anyway, enough fantasy booking for us. We've done enough. Hogan v Sting. This to me cements Hogan in my mind as like a top heel. I think I've been a little bit sceptical of some of the stuff that I've seen him doing up to this point, but I just feel the way that he carries himself in this match and the way that he's carrying himself on these shows just solidifies him as just being what a top heel should do. Mm-hmm. He basically dominates this whole match. He beats down Sting with his weightlifting belt as soon as the match starts. Yeah. It portrays Sting as the underdog. the whole match, and we know that the NWO are going to get involved at some point. But it doesn't come, it doesn't really come until right towards the end.
Yeah.
I got a little bit WrestleMania 6 deja vu with the whole test of strength stuff between Hogan and Sting and the face paint and all that. I quite liked that.
Yep.
How did you enjoy? What did you think of it?
I thought it was a good match. I mean, like you say about Hogan the heel, he wrestles the match as a heel, which is something that I think is quite a common criticism of nowadays. A lot of heels are a heel on the mic and then wrestle a totally clean match, that kind of thing. Whereas Hogan's using his weightlifting belt to try and get an early advantage. He's mugging to the crowd. I thought he did a good job, like you say, of selling himself as a heel. And we sort of forget how wrong this could have gone, because you're talking about the biggest ever babyface in wrestling, and he's managed to develop into a very effective heel, which isn't easy. That can't be easy to go through that and change everything. It's probably quite good fun, I would think.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, I thought he did it well. Like you say, there's a few things like test of strength and things like that, which are good. That they're kind of a previous era. That's how they feel. You don't see them in that many matches by this point in time. There's a point where Hogan's biting Sting as well. Really going for the heel approach. They've got the ref bump with I think it's Charles Robinson is the ref in the match. And he gets sandwiched between the two. I think Hogan maybe pulls him in. I think it's an intentional move.
Sting hits the second Scorpion death drop, doesn't he?
And
squashes
then
him.
Nick Patrick comes down, and I think that's everyone's cue to be thinking, oh no, he's managed to get involved in the match. Everything before's not been genuine, but then he mysteriously seems to call the match clean. Hogan hits the leg drop, Sting kicks out. Patrick had only done a 2 count and calls it as a 2 count. Hogan is furious.
I like that. Hogan's saying to him, "It's me."
Yeah. It's almost like the wrestling version of "Don't you know who I am" type thing. It was good, and it implies he did have him in his pocket, but Patrick is now too focused on keeping his job. The nice little twist to the story, I thought. And actually, I think I made it out right that he tells Hogan to follow the rules.
Nice.
Follow the rules tonight, or something like that.
I like that.
You've got Sting kind of doing a version of the hulking up routine.
Yeah, that's weird.
I quite liked it. It was strange, because I've never really seen. You get people who've had their own version of it. I suppose Warrior had his own version of it, with shaking the ropes and things like that. But I'd never seen Sting do anything like that, so I thought that was quite nicely done. And then you've got a couple of Stinger splashes. Scorpion death drop. And the NWO come down, get involved, but obviously Savage is still lurking there in the background.
Yeah,
and,
so he comes out with NWO, doesn't he? He comes out with the reserves.
Yeah.
And at some point, at the point where Sting tries to hit the Scorpion death drop, Hogan boots poor Kenny Powers right in the knackers.
Yep.
So there goes his night.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the point where the NWO ran down. Now, I don't know what was supposed to happen with the finish, because Savage looks like he hits Hogan with something, and then it looks like he puts that next to Hogan, whatever the object was. I didn't know if it was supposed to be brass knucks or something like that.
It's the spray paint can.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. I needed to have my glasses on when that was all going on. And then you've got Sting with the cover for the 3 count, and then a little bit of revenge, because as you mentioned, the spray paint of Sting spraying WCW on Hogan, and they have JJ Dillon hand the title to Sting. That's obviously JJ's big payday for the night. And the show goes off air basically with Sting holding the title and Hogan laid out in the ring.
And yeah, that caps it off.
Yeah, it was good. I thought it was a good finish. I think, right here for me, I think you had to put the title on Sting. You've had the controversy of what went before. I think I honestly don't know what happens title wise moving forward, but I think it made sense at the end of this show, because NWO have had their thing. They've got somebody a big name to cross over and join them. I think it almost felt like, and the announcers reacted like, the WCW side needed something, and they've got their title. Yeah. They've got the title back,
and it felt like not just a victory, but it felt bigger than that for WCW. Yeah,
and you also now are left by thinking, well, so you've got Sting with the belt, you've got Hogan, who's clearly not going to be pleased with anything that's going down, but that you've got now an upcoming Hogan Savage natural storyline to continue there as well.
Yeah, and I think if we go on to speak about the Nitro afterwards, they do a really good job, I feel, of getting you excited for what's next to come with Hogan and Savage.
Yeah,
but yeah, we can get into that. Do you want to take us through the Nitro after?
Yep, absolutely. Let's go ahead. So we start with a video package of a few stars who are bemoaning Scott Steiner, what he did to Rick, jumping to the NWO. You've got DDP, he's not best pleased. Booker T's not happy. Ric Flair, not impressed. Bret Hart is furious. He talks about basically having had this done to him, and this is actually a bigger deal for Bret than most people would realise.
Nobody is hurt more than me, he says.
Yeah.
How's that, Bret?
Yeah. Shut up, Rick. Stop complaining.
Can't believe he did this to me.
Yeah, so that was that almost felt a bit comedy, just because it felt so ridiculous. You've got the announcers are talking up. They're praising Sting for winning the title. They talk about the fractures in the NWO. They talk about Hogan and Savage and all that side of things. You've got poor Mean Gene, who's backstage and decides he wants to get all on Rick Steiner's face about what happened the night before, but Rick's not really for speaking at this stage.
A lot of bags with him.
Yeah, he did. For
somebody that just seems to, his only accessory seems to be some sort of gimp collar.
We've got a promo by Luger, who's talking about, I think he refers to Rick Steiner as being like a brother to him, and how upset he is with what went on the night before. Also congratulates Sting. And then we've got a little bit of Luger and Kurt Hennig. So it's I'm sure we saw this pair a bit in WWE. I think in the initial run, I think once Luger had cooled off a little bit,
right.
I think he had some matches.
Yes, that's right. I remember Perfect was the referee at WrestleMania 10, wasn't it? A guest referee. Yeah. And they had a bit of beef. That's right.
Yeah. So a little bit of a familiar situation there, but we've got Scott Steiner coming down, attacking Luger, beating him down. But Luger seems to recover a bit of control. They must have been big on Luger, because he's never ever made to look weak.
Yeah.
He's always comes across as very strong.
Definitely.
NWO come out to support their new charge, and then we've got Rick coming out to support Luger and confronting his brother, but then you're sort of reminded by just how many NWO guys there must be, because another wave come down, and then we see Sting come down from the rafters, and the ring actually then fills with WCW talent who are kind of there in support of Sting, Luger and Rick Steiner. So I think you're kind of left with that as there are too many people involved, you know, on all sides. There's just too many. I don't know whether they were trying to show us like whatever NWO have got, WCW can compete with if they all unite, you know, that kind of thing. I think that's maybe the sort of direction they were trying to go in there.
I wasn't quite sure if they were supposed to be there in support of Rick Steiner to say like, we've got your back sort of thing, but then the commentators seem to be like they all seem to burst into applause at some point, and they're like, oh, they're congratulating Sting.
Yeah.
It was a little bit odd.
Poor Rick, he's just forgotten about all over again. I blame Brett.
Me too. Definitely.
We've got a match, DDP beating Hammer, and
Hammer.
Raven's Flock with some involvement in this, but again the Diamond Cutter, it was quite a nice move actually. Diamond Cutter as Hammer came off the ropes, kind of RKO out of nowhere type situation. We've got Raven kind of wanting DDP to himself after the Flock have got involved. He's kind of shoving them out the way, but Benoit comes out to even up the numbers and just, I think, kind of firm up that dynamic between those two against the Flock.
Respect.
Yep. With a situation of Hogan and Bischoff arriving in a limo. There's clearly another person in the limo. They tell him not yet.
Let's leave that till later, says Hogan.
Let's leave that till later, and then we can talk around what happens there. We've got another sort of one of these Hogan and Bischoff promos in the ring. Hogan's obviously pretty pissed off with everything that's gone. And Savage, I think he's in the crowd. Savage.
He is. He's in the classic Shield position.
Yeah. And he's got his own microphone, and Hogan's basically challenged Savage to a cage match at Uncensored, which I assume is the next pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Savage indicates he's going to be kicking Hogan out of the NWO. He accepts the match, so that's on, and that it's, you know, a flashback from many years ago, WrestleMania 5, where it all culminated. But I like Savage, and I'm alright with seeing him in another programme with Hogan. We'll
same.
We'll see how it goes.
Really surprised by this, that Macho Man said that he would be kicking Hogan out of the NWO.
Yeah.
I did not get the impression that Macho Man was that arsed about being in the NWO anymore. But
it was an odd one, yeah.
They're changing it into a bit of a power struggle.
Again, whether that was done on the fly, because it very much felt like, I mean, Savage was in the parking lot when the whole NWO came out and attacked him, so I don't know why he would feel that if he beats Hogan, then he takes the head role in the NWO.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm not sure he would have the backing of the rest, but that's another story.
Especially if Hogan's paying all these fines as well that Nash is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Macho Man better have deep pockets.
We've got a couple of matches. We've got Ultimo Dragon against Kaz Hayashi. Yeah. And we've got then Benoit against Raven.
Yeah.
Seeing the intro when they're walking out, you've got Raven coming out first, and then Benoit's just kind of strolling out right behind him.
That was great.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Shouting on. Brilliant.
Yeah, that
Raven
was good.
doesn't have any music, does he?
I don't think there was any playing, unless it's something they just don't have the license to play on the network or something like that. I enjoyed this. Thought it was quite hard hitting.
There was a point right at the start. Benoit throws him into the guardrail.
Yep.
And Raven just goes for it.
Yep.
Brutal.
I think they sell that for a while because he made quite the dent in the rail.
Right.
There's a chair getting used as well in the match. There's Benoit hitting the 3 rolling German suplexes.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point where Raven kicks out, and then Kidman gets involved for Benoit to win by DQ, and then when the odds are stacked, DDP kind of returns the favour, making the save, although he takes a punch from Benoit in the melee. I think it's played off as Benoit didn't know it was him, assumed it was another flock member, I think, because they are left standing in the ring after they've fought off the others.
Do you think we're setting up a three-way dance here for next
It feels like it, and I'll be honest, I'm alright with that.
Aye, me too.
That sounds pretty good to me. I think that, it feels like it had enough in the story because there's three parties involved, and everything can't forever stay nicey between DDP and Benoit. So yeah, hopefully it's going to go that way, because I think that'd be quite a good story. We've got a Jericho match. He comes out wearing Juventud's mask.
It's brilliant,
and says he was going to wrestle in it, but he can't deny the audience the chance to see his face.
What a selfless champion he is.
Brilliant. I think this is maybe the first time I've heard this mentioned, but he suggests they change the name of the show to WCW Monday. Was it just Monday Jericho, or was it Monday Night Jericho?
I think.
Yeah. And he then says that JJ Dillon is 83% convinced to let him do it.
Class.
He sells quite a bit in this match. He's up against Lenny Lane. Wasn't a name that meant a lot to me. But Lenny Lane gets quite a bit of offense in. Jericho eventually retains with the Walls of Jericho. But it wasn't a name I was familiar with.
No, me neither. I actually looked him up, but I think maybe WCW might be the high point of his career. We've
got Vincent coming out for a match. I had to message you about this because I couldn't believe what was going on. Vincent is actually in a match here, which seems incredible. I mean, they've so many people on the roster, but Vincent is the guy they roll out. It's very much a squash against Rick Steiner. He kind of gets destroyed, and Rick is, emotional, frustrated, doesn't really let it go after. He keeps attacking Vincent. They're obviously sort of continuing the story of the situation that Rick finds himself in, with everything that happened the night before, and he's been able to take out on one NWO member, but the indication is that he's got a lot more anger to take out. Yeah,
poor Vincent's a lamb to the slaughter here, isn't he?
I genuinely only remember him having one match against Ted DiBiase previously, after he'd finally broken away from him. But
brilliant
here
boxer.
We are. Oh yeah. Never really got a chance to showcase it here, but never mind. We've got Saturn beating Yuri Nagata. Okay. We've got Booker T beating Renegade.
The Renegade.
You're a big fan of Renegade?
No,
okay, that's fine. Booker retains, Harlem sidekick. That's not an awful lot going on there.
No.
We've got Conan and Liz Mark. Did you quite like Conan in this?
Yeah, I like Conan.
Yeah,
I think I like anything he does. He's a wee bit buried in NWO, but he's playing a role, isn't he? But I like him in the ring. He's quite a bit different, quite innovative. So yeah, I'm a fan.
He calls out Juventud Guerrera a bit here, about the fact he lost his mask and he's nothing without it, and then talks about something that I assume was all in previous that we haven't seen, where he says he should have accepted his invite to join the NWO when he had the chance, because now basically he's not getting another chance. So I assume that's going to build to something somewhere. There's a tag match here.
Yes. Say it.
Vicious and delicious. So that's Buff Bagwell and Scott Norton.
This is the first time they've ever been referred to as this, is it not?
I think so.
Scott Norton's never been delicious in his life.
Are you sure
maybe
he's not vicious?
Maybe he's vicious, actually.
Who did they beat? High Voltage? High Voltage.
Do you know what these guys are called? High Voltage?
Kenny Chaos and Robbie Rage.
Like, how generic is that? Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I do find Bagwell very watchable.
Aye.
There's something about, he's got something.
Charismatic.
Yeah, and I've written, I'm trying to remember in my mind how this went down, but I've written that he jumps off the turnbuckle into a suplex. Because Scott Norton's got the one of High Voltage up on his shoulders. Or is it just lifted up? I can't remember exactly how it's done. But it reminded me of the old traditional tag finishes. You know, you had the Doomsday device, where one comes off the rope delivering a move. And there was one the Hart Foundation used to do where I think Brett lifted up the guy and Anvil came off the ropes with like a flying clothesline type thing. It kind of reminded me of like they've looked at those and added something of their own onto that sort of style, and I quite like that because, you know, tag teams should have some sort of coordinated tag finish.
Yeah, totally agree.
So yeah, but it was a bit of a squash, really. I've got the Norton suplex 2 guys at once as well.
Oh, that sounds vicious.
Yeah. We've got Eddie Guerrero defeating Disco Inferno.
Bit random, that one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially after Disco's big win against La Parca.
Yeah, I don't know where Guerrero is here, because they sort of underline on the announcers how big a win that is for him.
Oh, really?
So I assume he's kind of just slumming it down the card. But yeah, it's Eddie Guerrero's always fairly entertaining to watch. We've got a JJ Dillon segment, you know, your favourite.
Awesome.
He talks about the fact it was he who made the decision to send Nick Patrick to the ring.
Was it, though, JJ? Did Roddy Piper buzz you first?
He says that because of that, he can confirm without any doubt it is official. Sting is world champion. There's no controversy about this. The end, basically. Nick Patrick comes out, Kenny Powers style, and shakes the hand of JJ Dillon, goes to officiate a Ric Flair against Brad Armstrong.
Your next
match.
Assignment's in the ring, he says.
Yeah.
It's quite odd.
I find it a little bit odd that they're using Flair in a match like this on TV. I don't know, that felt a bit strange to me. I think in my mind he'd moved on to being special attraction style by this era.
So I can answer that. I can answer that question for you, Adam.
Okay.
So apparently, who are the company? TBS or is it TNT?
I think TBS are the network and TNT's one of the channels, basically.
So TBS, basically, their executives were certainly very much of the mind that Nitro comes first, then Thunder, then pay-per-view. People will buy the pay-per-views, but what they want is ratings. So use all your stars on the TV show, particularly Nitro, and if you don't use like a Flair on pay-per-view, then you're probably saving yourself money from having to pay him.
Okay.
So that's why Flair, you're more likely to see him on the likes of this than you were to see him on the pay-per-view, and obviously both him and Bret Hart, I believe that's the same reason.
Yeah, because I found it a little bit odd that Bret wasn't on the show as well, the pay-per-view show. Yeah, okay. I don't agree with it, but I can see the logic now, at least, so that's fine.
Did you think the Armstrong curse might have finished, might have ended here?
No.
Okay.
No. We've got an interview package next with the Giant.
Yes, that's right.
So we've seen so many replays of the moment where Nash tried to kill the Giant with a giant knife. So he gets invited to the ring by Mean Gene. He's wearing a neck brace. He's selling this. Talks about knowing the risks as a pro wrestler, but says that Nash intentionally tried to break his neck, but he failed. And although the doctors have told the Giant he may never wrestle again, he will be back, and he'll be coming back for Nash. He wants a match with Nash, and he wants the ban on the jackknife to be lifted because he doesn't want Nash to have any excuses. So I think I don't know if he's not been watching the fact that Hogan's paying all the fines anyway, so he's just been using it every week, but apparently he wants the ban lifted. So the indication seems to be that he'll be back sooner rather than later. In real timeline, I don't know when they actually go ahead with a return match for him, but can't imagine it's too long away.
No, I don't know either. This was a fairly decent I feel like with the Giant here, he's quite generic, and they're keeping him very much in a box of big sort of attraction. This was just missing a kind of Chewbacca Wookiee scream at the end of it, but we get to see how a real promo is done next, don't we?
Well, are we talking Brian Adams?
We are.
Here?
Yes.
Is that what you thought I was going on to previously?
Yeah, that's why I was getting excited.
Quite excited. Yeah. Right. So, Brian Adams is going to get interviewed by Mean Gene. Now, who was it Brian Adams played? Who were his characters before? Was he Crush?
Yeah, Crush, and was he called Chronic? Or am I making...
Possibly.
He was Crush anyway. Aye.
Yeah, so we kind of knew him as a mid-carder, really.
Cool Hawaiian
however,
dude.
He's now affiliated with the NWO B Squad, so Mean Gene asks why he's affiliated with them, and what possible issue he could have with Bret Hart. He says he joined the NWO because they are elite, they are the measuring stick. He kind of fumbles his way through this a bit. He is not a natural on the mic. It's not great, this. Basically calls out Bret.
Hold on, Adam. Hold on, you're underselling it. Bret Hart, let me tell you what would happen if we... No, wait. Even better. Let me tell you what wouldn't happen. First of all, I wouldn't be knocked off my feet because you're not good enough. And kicks Bret Hart's music, and the relief on Brian Adams' face.
Yeah,
it's intense.
It's really bad. They should never let him have the mic again.
No. Let Kurt Hennig speak for him. Let Rick Rude speak for him someday.
Yeah. Just anyone, because they seem to be in a trio within the NWO banner. So yeah, those two guys can both talk a bit. Let them do it. So you get a bit of a physical altercation starting with Adams initially overpowering Bret Hart. Bret ends up on top, applies the sharpshooter. We've got Kurt Hennig coming out to attack Bret. We've got Ric Flair making the save. I think we've had some interaction between Flair and Bret previously. It feels a little forced. It's kind of felt a little forced all the way along. But Flair then cuts a promo. I think giving Bret props about actually being the best there is, best there ever will be. All that. I think you mentioned to me previously that you're right about this. Bret's kind of no selling it.
Completely no sells it.
He doesn't give anything back either. Bret instead challenges Kurt Hennig to a match at Uncensored. I'm absolutely fine with that. They've had some pretty good matches over the years. I do imagine, Kurt Hennig, he's probably struggling a bit physically by this stage. I think he's had a couple of retirements already, but I'm still, I'm quite intrigued to see how a match between them will play out. I've no doubt there'll be interference of some kind.
So far then we're talking Uncensored, we're talking Hogan Savage in a steel cage and perfect v Bret Hart. How good is that?
Yep. And they are both matches that intrigue me. So
me too.
That is, I suppose, the whole point, although it doesn't sound like it is, but traditionally the point is you sell your pay-per-view on TV, and they're doing, even though this will be early because it'll still be a few weeks away, they're doing a pretty good job of selling it to me so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got a match, kind of. We've got Sting v Scott Hall title match. We've got the weird sort of scene of the NWO come out, but not Hall. and Bischoff has the mic, talks about Hall deserving his shot. If Sting comes out alone, the NW will leave. The other Sting makes an appearance. Now, I remember this being a thing. I remember hearing about this being a thing. But I think it's all in the past, the fact that there was another Sting who was NWO, and this is the first time he'd been seen for a while.
This was like Halloween Havoc 96 or something like that. There was a fake Sting, I think. Yeah. I think that's right.
So, yeah, an appearance by the fake Sting, but this fake Sting is Scott Hall. And they attacked the real Sting. Savage comes down, enters the ring, tries to fight the whole of the NWO, but gets beat down. They mentioned, so I think we're back now to the guy in the limo who wasn't coming out, who is standing in the corner. You messaged me earlier saying, who was that guy? I replied saying, I've no idea. And then unfortunately, you came back telling me who it was. So I don't know if you just want to break the news to everyone about who it was. So
there was a very massive looking gentleman gets in the ring whilst all this chaos is going on. So I quickly googled some random words: Nitro, February 98. Who was this? So apparently this is someone called the Disciple. And I'd noticed Hogan was threading the word disciple into some of his promos. I don't know if you noticed.
I didn't, but now that you've said it, yeah.
So this is apparently. So this guy's he's got a beard, he's got long hair, he's got on the Hollywood Hogan bandana and sunglasses. This is apparently Brutus the Barber Beefcake. So, yeah, I don't remember him being that physically imposing. Maybe when somebody's running about with a pair of garden shears in their hands, then you don't really notice how big they are.
I do remember, I think at the time, peak Brutus Beefcake, I think he was big, but he wasn't, huge, because some of the guys are absolutely massive. I think, he would have stood out compared to the normal sized guys, but he wouldn't stand next to a Hogan or something like that, or Warrior. But yeah, he looked huge here.
They didn't. It was really weird. They the commentary team no-sold it. There was no sort of. He didn't do anything.
Yeah, he just stood in the corner.
Stood in the ring.
It actually went through my mind of, sometimes the announcers don't know or don't want to know what's coming, so they can react, in a natural way to what they see. Yeah. Maybe they were looking, thinking, "Who is that guy?" so
no idea who that is.
Yeah. There's maybe somebody shouting in their ear, "It's Brutus!" And they're like, "Is it?" Okay. So yeah, it came across really weird because they built it and then they didn't even mention him by name, and he didn't get physically involved in anything. Strange.
It was odd, but maybe we'll build to something between now and Uncensored.
Yeah, I'm just worried that thing we're going to build to is Brutus the Barber Beefcake matches.
Maybe we could have. I was going to say maybe we could have him against Rick Martel, but unfortunately Rick Martel will not be on our. Yeah,
I think this is maybe career over for Rick Martel. I've got a funny feeling he's done.
Yeah, so he does this to his knee, and then he's out for ages, and he comes back and has one match, and he has a career ender in that match. You feel bad about what you were saying all about his ass in the last podcast now.
So I've heard him mentioned in podcasts because there's only a few guys that they talk about like this as somebody who has no interest in getting back in, like in any kind of role. He's done. He has a new life. He's managed to, I think in a healthy way, move on.
Right. Just like Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
But they said that apparently, like even things like the Hall of Fame, he's had a call and asked, and he's like, I'm just not really that interested. So yeah, he must just be really happily away from it all now. He would obviously at the age he would be now, he'd have, I would assume, no place being in the ring again. But it's odd that you don't get that many people that sort of shy away from invites to come back and even just get in the ring and speak, or just do something and maybe take a Hall of Fame place. But it just sounded like he's moved on. I think it was Bruce Pritchard, and he was saying he does think he'll go in eventually. He's just not that interested right now.
Interesting.
So we don't end up getting the actual title match, the Sting v Scott Hall title match. We get they start spray painting Savage. Luger comes out, the NWO scramble, and yeah, it felt like, it kind of felt to me like second TV show in a row. The sort of main event match didn't take place.
It didn't really happen, aye.
Yeah, but even with all that, I actually really enjoyed what we saw, because a few weeks ago when we did our first WCW show, I really struggled to get into it. I just didn't think it was good. I didn't find it very watchable. There wasn't an awful lot that was grabbing me. These 3 shows that we've watched, I've now got an appetite for it, because I generally, not every element, but I generally enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. Feel the exact same. And if we were to say we're going to go and watch Uncensored as the next one, then I'd be well up for it.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not.
We're not. Mm-hmm.
And they'll build the appetite for it, hopefully.
Yep.
I've just clicked on the Wikipedia page and I regret doing that now, but you know, these things happen in life. So yeah, WCW living up to its 83-week winning billing, I think, with this pay-per-view and this showcase.
Yeah, agreed. I think we mentioned earlier, stars, you know, they've got so many stars. They've also got a lot of workers underneath that, and it feels here like the mix is really good. They've got enough other stories that are interesting enough to keep people engaged. If you're feeling that the NWO stuff's becoming a little bit stale, there's still plenty of other things going on.
Aye, totally.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm really surprised we've went this long talking about this show. We've went just about as long as the show. So just to quickly kind of think about where we're going to next. In episode 16, we're getting our first taste of Extreme.
Awesome.
We've got ECW's first pay-per-view of the year, 1st of March, Living Dangerously, 1998. Yep. Which, yeah, I don't know if you want to go through the matches or if you just want to wait till next episode.
I think I've got it up in front of me, and rather than sort of talk through everything, just some things that sort of jump out in terms of the stars we'll get to see. Mm-hmm. We've got RVD on the card. We've got Dudley Boys. We've got Tommy Dreamer, Bam Bam Bigelow, Taz.
Bam Bam v Taz sounds fun.
Yep. We've got Sabu. We've got the Sandman. You know, there's quite a lot here. And then we've got I kind of, Shane Douglas is one of these guys that intrigues me, because it seems like he was absolutely huge in ECW. Yep. Like for a while, the star, but he just didn't ever even get close to happening anywhere else. Yep. It's strange, but yeah, quite intrigued to see him as well. So I think there's a few interesting looking matches, and I'm really looking forward to going back and watching some ECW stuff, because I've seen a few of the pay-per-views, but when we sort of try to look at and get into storylines, I will definitely have only seen them in isolation. I wouldn't have really known what was going on. Yeah,
same. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I'm really intrigued by the tag team name of the Hardcore Chair Swinging Freaks.
Yeah.
Balls Mahoney and Axl Rotten, I like that.
Yeah, I suppose it's just does what it says on the tin type situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Excellent, looking forward to that. And we've got some episodes of ECW Hardcore TV to bookend that pay-per-view as well, so that's going to be interesting to watch.
Yep, definitely. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, have you watched WCW Superbrawl 8? Did you enjoy it as much as we did? Are you a Steve McMichaels fan? Please don't message us and let us know why. We don't care. Hit us up on Instagram at Outlaws Pod. We've given up with Twitter because it's full of whining bitches. But you can catch us on Instagram.
You've gone full, like, I feel like you've just gone Scott Steiner. Like you just went heel, and it's blindsided everyone.
Like
just,
over the top.
I feel like I could have been Rick, just in the pose on the mat, and then I've just been double axe handled on the back.
I would bleach my hair if I had enough to bleach, but I need to think of a different way of doing that then. Maybe next week or next time I could wear some sort of chain mail on my head. Anyway, hit us up on Instagram, and we shall see you for episode 16, where we get extreme. Until then, Adam, it's been nice chatting, and I'll speak to you for next episode.
Cool. Speak to you soon.
Cheers.